Join me as I dive into the complex world of police qualified immunity and break it down simply. Can I make this topic easy to understand in just 10 minutes? Qualified immunity is a legal doctrine that protects police officers from being held liable in many civil lawsuits. But what does that even mean? Essentially, it means that police officers can't be sued for damages if they violate someone's constitutional rights, unless it's proven that their actions were clearly unlawful and they should have known better. There's a lot of controversy surrounding qualified immunity. Some argue that it shields police officers from accountability and creates a culture of impunity. They claim that it allows officers to violate people's rights without fear of consequences, which can lead to a breakdown in trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. On the other hand, proponents of qualified immunity argue that it's necessary to protect police officers from frivolous lawsuits and allow them to make split-second decisions without fear of being second-guessed. The controversy surrounding qualified immunity is further fueled by high-profile cases where police officers have been accused of using excessive force or violating people's rights. In many of these cases, qualified immunity has been used as a defense, leading to outcry and claims that it's being used to protect officers who have violated the law. This has sparked a heated debate about whether qualified immunity is doing more harm than good. Should police officers be held accountable for their actions, or do they need protections to do their jobs effectively? At the heart of the controversy is a question about accountability. If police officers can't be held liable for their actions, does that mean they're above the law? And if so, what message does that send to the public? The perception is that qualified immunity creates a system where police officers are not accountable to the communities they serve, and that's a problem. The origins of qualified immunity are rooted in a 1967 Supreme Court case called Pearson v. Ray. In that case, the court ruled that police officers couldn't be sued for damages unless they violated clearly established law. Over time, the doctrine has evolved through court rulings, with some decisions expanding its scope and others limiting it. Today, qualified immunity is applied in a wide range of cases, from police brutality to false arrest and even discrimination. The concept of qualified immunity was initially intended to protect police officers from having to fear lawsuits every time they made an arrest or used force. The idea was that officers needed to be able to make quick decisions without fear of being sued, and that they shouldn't be held liable for mistakes made in good faith. However, critics argue that the doctrine has been stretched too far and that it now protects officers even when they violated people's constitutional rights. In 1982, the Supreme Court case of Harlow v. Fitzgerald further expanded qualified immunity, making it even more difficult for people to sue police officers. The court ruled that officers were immune from liability unless their actions violated clearly established law that a reasonable person would have known about. This raised the bar for proving police misconduct, making it even harder for people to hold officers accountable. One recent high-profile case that illustrates the real-world implications of qualified immunity is the death of Breonna Taylor. In March 2020, Taylor, a 26-year-old black woman, was fatally shot by police officers in her own home during a botched raid. The case sparked widespread outrage, with many calling for the officers to be held accountable. However, the officers involved in the raid claimed qualified immunity as a defense, arguing that they couldn't be sued for damages. The case has reignited calls to reform qualified immunity and hold police officers more accountable for their actions. The Breonna Taylor case highlights the tension between protecting police officers and ensuring accountability. While qualified immunity is intended to protect officers from frivolous lawsuits, it can also be used to shield them from accountability. In cases like Taylor's, where officers have been accused of violating people's rights, qualified immunity can be seen as a barrier to justice. The case has also sparked a wider conversation about police reform and the need for greater accountability. Many argue that qualified immunity is just one part of a larger system that prioritizes police protections over community trust and accountability. By limiting the doctrine or abolishing it altogether, some argue that police officers would be more accountable to the communities they serve. To recap, qualified immunity is a legal doctrine that protects police officers from being held liable in many civil lawsuits. While it's intended to protect officers from frivolous lawsuits, it's been criticized for shielding them from accountability and creating a culture of impunity. The doctrine has evolved over time through court rulings, and its application can have real-world implications, as seen in cases like Breonna Taylor's. Ultimately, the debate around qualified immunity is about finding a balance between protecting police officers and ensuring accountability. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on qualified immunity in the comments below.